Hello, and welcome back to The Strangest Gig I've Ever Played, the podcast where we hear the true tales about all the strange, weird, wild, wacky, terrible, and or amazing gigs we have to take in order to make it as freelance and gigging musicians. With us today on the podcast is one Matt the Cat Hillyer, lead singer and songwriter for the great Dallas classic country honky-tonk band 1100 Springs. Y'all stick around for some great stories. We are back after summer hiatus. Happy to be here. We got a lot of really great guests lined up for this season, and I can't wait for you to hear them and hear all the amazing stories. Again, this is the Strangest Gig podcast, and I'm your host, Chris J. Norwood. If you'd like to know more about what I've got going on, you can go to chrisjnorwood.com. In the studio now working on a new album, a new sound with a big band. It's a vintage-inspired rock and soul review, which I'm very excited about. We've got some gigs coming up in late October I'd love for you to come to. But right now, let's go ahead and get into Matt Hillyer. As I said, Matt is the lead singer and songwriter for 1100 Springs, the band that just decided to hang up their honky-tonk boots after over 20 years of being one of the best classic country bands coming out of Texas. You can go check out the documentary, The Road to 1100 Springs, to hear more of those stories. Matt and I get into a few of those as well. We also hear some of the crazy stories from Matt's early days in Lone Star Trio, traveling around, doing touring all the wrong ways. We had such a fun conversation that we actually had to split this podcast up into two parts. And I don't want to waste your time anymore, so let's get into part one. Here's Matt the Cat Hillyer. Cool. Well, Matt...
are we starting now?
We're starting now.
Okay,
Matt,
good deal.
Welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you being here. You're obviously a guy that's been around doing the thing for a long, long time, so I know you got a lot of great stories. But first, tell me about your current gig, what you've got going on currently.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll go back a little bit because... of course, 1100 Springs, I did that for 23 years, and the bands that Steve and I put together before that, so that amounts to about 30 years of he and I working together in bands. And then we quit doing 1100 Springs last November.
What was that decision like to stop doing 1100 Springs? Was it?
You know what? If I'm telling the truth, we'd been hovering over that button for years, really, just because, anytime you're going to go make a record, it's like a decision. It's like, okay, do we make another record? Do we do this? And it relates to the answer to your question. It's basically like, I think a few years, like maybe around 2012 or 2013, 1100 Springs didn't break up, but it's just started doing less stuff, and then some people thought we did break up. We never really did. But in that process, I started doing more acoustic singer-songwriter shows. Yeah, which I had been doing over the years, anyways. But I really kind of leaned into it pretty good, and realized how much I really just enjoy that a lot. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's just kind of acoustic singer-songwriter stuff.
Are you working on a solo album?
My record is done.
That's great.
And I'm working on my next one.
Oh, wow.
I got a lot of stuff. Man.
That's great.
Yeah, so my record will drop, as they say, officially in February. But we're going to be releasing some singles here in the next couple of weeks and the months. Of course, you don't really want to release a record in the back half of the year, so.
Where'd you record?
A couple different places. We did the drums and bass at Modern Electric in Dallas, and then we did some fiddle tracks at Audio Dallas, and then we recorded some at a studio, Chemical Street. Yeah. And then some at good old John Pettigo's house.
Did Pettigo produce?
Yes. Yeah. He did a great job. I'm really excited about it.
It's great.
It's if you like my songs historically, then you'll like this. But then also there's some left turns on it as well. Just since I'm not really specifically writing to the sound of a band, there's some stuff that's just different, and it's fun. I'm excited for people to hear it.
Was that like inspiring to you to be like, oh, I don't have to think about Steve playing this a certain or
It's it's liberating because you can do whatever you want to do. Where not that I couldn't do that with the band. And to be clear, it's not an album with just acoustic. It's got a band on the album, but my gigs are typically acoustic. But no, it's liberating that way, just because there's a whole bunch of songs that I have that maybe just aren't that traditional country sound.
Yeah.
I don't have to have a fiddle or a steel on any of it.
On every single track,
if I don't want it, and I can just sort of produce to the song.
That's great.
Yeah. No, I had a lot of fun with it.
That's cool. So tell me about I'm interested to hear about those early days of 1100 Springs playing at Adair's, right? Because I played at Adair's a bunch, and it's always it's either dead or it can be the rowdiest place you've ever played on any random, even on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
It could be super rowdy. So what were those early days at Adair's like?
Well, I'll tell you, the band wasn't supposed to be anything at all except for a way for us to make extra beer money. Cause it was me and Steve and Richie Vasquez who, playing drums. So it was just the three of us. And he at the time was playing for Jesse Dayton. Uh-huh. And, so we got a residency there on Monday nights just for fun, because we knew, we already knew all these country songs anyways, or, at least the ones we could remember.
Right.
And we would just go up there and screw around and be silly. And
y'all just did it as a trio at first?
Yeah, just as a trio, just sort of playing old Hank Thompson or, Johnny Horton or whatever else. And there wasn't, like you said, there wasn't anybody there except maybe a couple of bar regulars that didn't care for what we were doing, because we weren't very good, because we didn't have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't just terrible. We knew some of these songs, but there were no arrangements. It's not like we had a rehearsal or anything like that. We just got up there and said, "You remember this song? Oh yeah, I remember that. We'll just do that. Train beat. There we go." And then after a while, we had enough people, because we were playing rock music. Steve and I had a rock band that we were doing at the time. And so it was just kind of a side gig. But all our rock and roll friends who worked at the bars and worked, as bartenders or door guys or sound men or whatever, Monday night was their weekend, So service industry night, and you get all these people coming from the bars, younger rock and roll types with tattoos and crazy colored hair and piercings and things like that. And they would come in, and the bar regulars did not like that at all. So, we almost got fired from that residency just because there was enough crotchety guys complaining about, girls dancing with each other, but Paul, the bartender, was the one who kind of stuck up for our gig, and he was like, man, he told Lois and Junior, this is the way I understand it, by the way. I don't, I wasn't privy to these conversations, but basically no, this is a younger crowd. These are people who don't come in here. Yeah. We want these people. And then we got better. We added a fiddle. We got better over time. And I started writing a couple songs for it. We made a $5 cassette tape, because our fiddle player had some studio time that he won at his church or something like that. So we went in and recorded a $5 tape and sold enough of those to make a T-shirt, sold enough T-shirts to make a CD. Yeah. And the Monday nights started to turn into a scene. It just became, word got out that you could go drink cheap beer. Yeah. And it was free. And you could see a band righteously screw up traditional country music. Yeah. And then Mike Snyder started putting us on different shows, like at the Gypsy Tea Room and stuff, opening for people. And it just kind of steamrolled. It just became a thing. Those Monday nights, when at their height, it was wild. Yeah. When it got to be a thing, every Monday night was packed, and it was just it was a lot. It was a lot to handle, and those Monday nights got to be really crazy.
Crazy just because the crowd was kind of crazy, or
the crowd was crazy. Yeah, I mean, and it's Adairs. Adairs has when it's like you said, when it's hopping, it's just got an energy.
It does.
It forces people to drink excessively.
I mean, it's a honky tonk in the truest sense of the word.
Yeah.
In the middle of downtown Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good energy, and like the fact that it was the difference between Monday nights and Saturday nights at Adair's, as far as when we were playing, was that the crowd you weren't gonna find that crowd. I don't think anywhere else. That mixture of people, because, like I said, you had rock and rollers, you had college kids, you had rednecks, you had just regular old working folks, all mixed together in one spot.
Yeah,
it was a real hodgepodge type crowd, and it all centered around that music.
And still, I mean, Adair's is still that way, where you get that kind of mix.
Yeah, it's like a weird sort of tourist spot. You know, like. But I don't know. I went in there recently, and I don't know. It still feels like it's got that energy. It's just sort of dank and just I don't know. It's got that heartbeat to it.
So, man, let's get into some of the fun stuff. Tell me now about the strangest gig you've ever played.
It's really hard to narrow that down.
Let's hear all of them then.
Well, yeah, no, there's lots of them, and because you get to thinking, you wonder sometimes how many gigs you've actually played in your life, and it's thousands, I know. But okay, so the one that I typically go to on this, and I don't know how strange it is, but it's just I don't. But it's one of these moments where you just sort of have a self-realization. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
How does this happen?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We used to do these gigs, these casino gigs in Oklahoma, and we would try to book these things in concurrently with some sort of run up to the Midwest.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they would book you for 2 or 3 days, sometimes early in the week, and the money was okay. It was decent. They'd put you up, and you'd make it halfway to wherever you were going, and put some gas in your tank and all that stuff. Now, that being said, they're not good gigs.
The casino
they're
gigs.
Not good gigs.
Are you playing in like a
theater
or
soul
like
right out of you? No, you're on the casino floor.
You're on the floor, yeah. With a bunch
these
of blue
gigs,
hairs.
well, yeah,
quarters.
these gigs were in particular. There was one that was literally on the border of Oklahoma and Arkansas in Siloam Springs, and like the casino was in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
If you cross the street, you're in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas. But it was one of those casinos that didn't have any card games. It was only slot machines. Yeah. And I mean, I'm telling you, and they wouldn't let you play amplifiers. You had to play through one of those pods.
Wow, yeah.
And they wouldn't let you play your own drum set. You had to play electric drums because they needed to control all that stuff.
Yeah.
It takes a strong constitution.
Absolutely.
To sort of suck it up and go do this gig.
Was anybody there to like see y'all, or were y'all just background noise?
No, nobody's there to see music at all. Like, it's Nowheresville.
Which
but this wasn't the Siloam Springs isn't where the gig I'm talking about. We did another one that was sort of outside of Tulsa, which was a better casino, but it's still just not good.
Still
Same electric drum thing. So we were there for like Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
And they asked us if we wanted to tack on an extra gig on the Sunday.
Like a matinee or Sunday night?
Yeah, it was a matinee. They were promoting a new game. And it was not we were going to be playing in like a ballroom instead of the casino floor. And so which means we would have to pack up our stuff and towed it to the other side of the casino, and which wasn't any big deal. It was going to be like from noon to 3.
Yeah.
And and it's extra money. We're like, well, we're already here, so we might as well go and do it. So we did. We toted everything over there, loaded in onto this actual stage. You know, seems legit.
Yeah.
More legit than the gigs we've been doing the days prior.
Yeah.
And it's about noon. Nobody is in this room except the people who are working.
Yeah.
No one. and they're like, okay, you guys got to start. I'm like, seriously? I mean, there's no one. There's nobody in. It's like, well, if you start playing, they'll come. It's like, they're not coming. They're not coming. So we start playing, and I'm up there on stage playing to just the people who are casino workers. They got a buffet of food for people to come in and check out this new game. And
was it another slot game?
No. This is where it gets interesting. Okay. So the game, I come to realize as I'm on stage, I look over in the back part of the room, and there's just this. It's this box. With a live chicken in it. And the name of the game is Tic-Tac-Doe.
Oh, no.
And basically, you're playing tic-tac-toe against a chicken.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to guess that there's a piece of dough or whatever it is that they're feeding this chicken to make him, pick whatever X or O he's going to pick.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to guess against the chicken.
Yeah.
It's this ridiculously stupid game, just like a stupid game. And people would come in and maybe they'd play the game, but really they didn't. They just came and got a plate of food, free food, and walked out. And I'm looking at the situation and I'm like, man, I'm up here on stage playing for a live chicken, at this, how does this happen? Like, what bad decisions in life did I make to put me in this room where this is not what I had in mind?
No.
When I started
when
playing
you first
music.
picked up a guitar
And the thing that really messed me up in the head about it was just, people come in and they get their food and they split. But the thing that messed me up was the fact that they ought to just take a wild guess what was on the buffet.
Fried chicken?
Chicken.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. So it's like you got this chicken in this box who I relate to more than anything.
Yeah.
Because I'm up here on this stage. It's like me and the chicken have so much in common in this scenario.
Yeah.
And this whole family's being served 10 feet away. It's like, what am I doing here? So I don't know how strange that is, but it is, it is one of those gigs that you have like a moment of realization.
Should maybe make you maybe rethink your
question your entire life.
You know what the funny thing is?
A long drive home from Tulsa after that,
The funny thing is you're actually the second guest that I've had to tell a similar story.
Tic-tac-doe?
Uh-huh. It was
somebody else played
it was Chris Holtz, and he was playing a gig at what's that? Jimmy Dean's, that place up on the freeway. Anyway, it was
Eddie Dean's.
Eddie Dean's.
Yeah.
And the same thing, but I think it was like a chicken drop where like you bet on where a chicken's going to take a shit.
Yeah. Chicken shit bingo. Yeah. I've seen that a lot. That's got its charm. It's funny because you're waiting for a chicken to take a dump. You know? Like, that's weird in and of itself, but I've seen that plenty of times. And, but the tic-tac-doe thing.
Tic-tac-doe.
There was another time, you talk about a situation that was weird. Of course, I started when I was really young, playing gigs. And when you're that young, everything is like an adventure to you. You do just about any gig that anybody asks you to do.
Happily so, yeah.
Yeah. It just, if there was an opportunity to go play, sure, everything. I got nothing else to do that's better than that,
Right.
So I remember when I was probably about 18, Lone Star Trio was the band we had, and of course Lone Star Trio did pretty well, man. Like we had plenty of legit gigs, so we didn't have to take this so-called gig.
Yeah.
But somebody called us last minute, this gal that we knew, and said there was going to be a lingerie party.
Okay.
Do you want to come and play the lingerie party? We can give you $50. And we said, yes,
Absolutely.
We do want to come play the lingerie party.
You had me at lingerie party.
Now, because I mean, that just sounds interesting.
Yeah.
You know? And knowing who asked us to do it, it's like, it's going to get crazy.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting time.
Yeah.
So we loaded into this house over off Live Oak and set up our stuff. And these gals are all in lingerie now. I don't think any of these girls would be listening to this podcast, so I'll go ahead and say that these maybe not necessarily the girls that you actually want to see at the lingerie party.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, hell, we're young, freewheeling dudes. You
Yeah.
know? So, just like any party, it starts off just kind of tame.
Yeah.
Nobody's really lubricated yet.
So who's the party
for lack of a better term?
Right, yeah.
I don't know. One of the gals, I guess maybe it was their birthday or something, but they're all hanging out in their lingerie in the backyard. And they have a bonfire going on back there. And the band is the only dudes there.
Oh, wow.
And they're drinking some sort of weird blue drink. And I was 18. I really didn't drink hardly ever.
Yeah.
Then, but they really wanted us to partake in this blue drink. I don't know what it is. It looked like hypnotic or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm like, no, I'm staying away from the blue drink.
Yeah.
But they're all sitting around the fire, and there's a big thing that they're sitting on. Kind of looked like they were sitting on a log, but it wasn't a log. It was some sort of art installation of a giant penis.
Okay.
And they're all it's laying on the ground, and they're all sitting on it.
Of course.
And of course we're the only dudes there.
Yeah.
And I was 18, and they were flirting pretty heavily, and
Yeah.
they started getting loaded and starting to get loose and everything like that. And we start playing, having a good time, and then they start taking more clothes off and stuff. We started taking clothes off. And we didn't get butt naked or anything. By the time we did get down to our underpants, which encouraged them to get down with it. You know, somewhere there are photographs of this situation
on somebody's hard drive.
Yeah, someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing that freaked me out the most was just the big penis couch thing that they were all sitting on. I don't know. It was very, interesting to watch as an 18-year-old. You never seen anything like that before.
I mean, you're thinking just from that point out, it's lingerie parties every night that you're playing.
No. I'm thinking I want to get out of here alive. I don't want to get torn to pieces by these gals.
Yeah.
And like I say, it was a lingerie party, but it's not necessarily the lingerie party of your dreams. It's not what you imagine when you think about stuff like that. But there's all kinds of gigs that I can think of that it's just like gigs being weird is not that it's not even that weird to me, because the whole process, the whole prospect of getting up on stage and taking all your stuff and driving someplace and getting up on stage, loading it on to a stage, and then having the audacity to believe that these people need to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That is weird enough.
Absolutely.
The ones that I remember, sadly enough, are usually because I had some sort of moment of, like I say, self-realization, where you're just like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
Well, why does this happen? And that's not necessarily always in a good way.
Yeah.
But weird stuff, I don't know. I welcome that. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what's so normal about any gig anybody ever plays.
True. It makes it worth doing a lot of times. Yeah.
I tell you, when I was young and I started, and I was probably 12 or 13, and I was hanging out with a whole bunch of older musicians.
Yeah.
and they always had stories. They always had these good stories, and they were really good at telling them and stuff. And I just would love to sit there and listen to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, and I didn't have anything to contribute, just because nothing really had ever happened to me. Save like a couple of gigs that I might have had, and nobody wants to hear about those stories from a 13-year-old. Nobody's buying them. So I always wanted to have stories like everybody else. And what they don't tell you when you're starting out is like a lot of those stories are just bought with a lot of really hard situations. They're funny to laugh at later. But when you're in it, like it's not necessarily what you thought it was going to be,
When you're trying to make a career out of it, right? Like that's not what you're...
That's weird. You want to talk about what weird? The entire gig is weird, like just the idea that you could... there's a reason people get scared off from this so-called business so easily, and especially nowadays. But, it's not for the faint-hearted. And there's so many of those trips, especially back then. Now I look at younger guys that are starting out, and just there's like a handbook almost. Yeah. That they can follow and figure out, okay, this is how you do this is how you do this. There's the internet. Yeah. Right. There's GPS. Yeah. That's a big deal. You can look up the first Garmin box we ever had, like it was one of the really big clunky Garmin box, and I got it for Christmas. My in-laws bought me for those who don't remember Garmin was like one of the first GPS sort of, it's a box. Like
it looked like a computer that you set on your dash.
Right. Yeah. And half the time the band cursed it because it would get it wrong, and you're driving. But now it's like you don't realize what a revolutionary thing that is, and
Absolutely,
how you now automatically overnight, it's like you just stopped having to stop at the gas station and call the club for directions,
All right, that's part 1. I don't know, man. I think Tic-Tac-Toe sounds like a lot of fun, but not anything I'd want to play a gig for. Y'all stick around. We got part 2 coming up in a couple weeks. Y'all stay tuned for that. Some more great stories from Matt about being in Lone Star Trio and traveling around, doing it all the wrong way. Again, my name is Chris J. Norwood, and this is the Strangest Gig Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.